Hey everyone, welcome to Designing Adobe XD. Back here on a Friday, I'm your host, Talon Wadsworth. I'm the lead designer for Adobe XD, and today I'm very excited to have, of course, one of my favorite designers on from the Adobe XD team, Hillary Niemer. I'll call myself. Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Hillary. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I gave her the word late yesterday for the early stream today.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here early. Yeah. No one else is.
Yeah.
Just Gus and Paco with us here. So as always, and all of you as well. Welcome everybody. How's everybody doing today? I see, of course, a bunch of familiar faces, which I love seeing in the chat. Kita, Harpreet, Daniel, Vladislav. How's everybody doing? How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, excited to be here.
You did something pretty awesome this week, or at least the whole team did, I should say. But
Yes.
I think for you, it was kind of a first, wasn't it?
It was the first here at Adobe, yeah. And so we had a big release this week.
Big, ooh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. What was your favorite part of that release?
Well, I'm biased, obviously, but components.
All right,
So.
don't tell anybody else. Secretly, that was my favorite too. I'm sure everyone else would agree. There's so many good things.
Yeah.
But we are here today to talk about one of Hillary's first big projects on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Hillary just celebrated her 1-year anniversary on the team.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
It's been amazing. It doesn't felt like a year.
I know, it was
But
fast.
it was really fast, really fast. And she got to celebrate, on that same day, shipped at least phase 1 of the big feature that she's been working on for the past few months, components.
Yeah.
Have you all checked out components? Have you all downloaded the latest update, the May update for XD? Are you using components? I know I am.
Yeah.
There's no going back. I'm really excited about this feature. It just feels like it really changes, fundamentally, how you work in XD.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a good improvement for us, and it's just going to help with working faster and keeping consistency through your designs and a lot of flexibility too. So
for those who don't know or haven't maybe tried yet components in XD, so what are components? Do you have tell us about it?
Yeah, so components is basically a big upgrade from what Symbols was in XD. So the idea is reuse, but we are introducing a ton of flexibility with components. So it'll help you be able to keep consistency, but also have the flexibility to be able to make small changes and work quicker.
Yeah. So I don't know if any of you had a lot of experience using Symbols in the past. I was always a big user of Symbols, and that goes way back. I've always liked to sort of smartly start to build up my sort of UI components, and then knowing that I still want to be able to iterate and change them. But if I make a change, I want to make sure that I don't have to go back and find all the places I've used that UI element and just updates automatically. And the old behavior with Symbols was that it was live. So whatever you were editing a symbol, if you had copied and pasted and used that symbol anywhere else, it would just change automatically.
Right.
We saw a lot of limitations in that. There's a lot of power, but there were a lot of limitations.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we started is, we noticed that a lot of people were having some issues where they'd have to break symbols to make a small change, and then you kind of lose the power of the feature.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's dig into that just a little bit more, and maybe we can actually. You can actually illustrate as we're talking, about what components are for and how you use them.
Totally.
All right, let's do that. How's everybody else doing? Who's joining us? They are in the chat today. Marcos, Harpreet, Sally. How's everybody doing? Today we're talking about components with the designer of components here with us today, and we're gonna go check out some of those new behaviors inside of XD.
Cool.
So.
All right, so let's start with a basic use case, a button.
Yeah.
For some reason, it is working. Okay, so if I'm creating a button in XD, let's change the color here. I don't know why the border
Good, Dan. We'll make sure we're talking a lot then, Dan. So even if Dan's just listening to live show while doing work, I do that a lot too.
Oh yeah, totally.
It helps to have maybe I'll talk. I'll sort of narrate. So Hillary's creating like that UI button, right? And then that's one of the core use cases, right, of reusability inside of kind of any design, like any sort of UI project, right?
Totally.
Like if you have a button and it needs to be the same button everywhere.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's important to have that consistency, right? As users are interacting with your app or your service, that button signifies an action that they're going to need to take.
Yeah.
So
in the old model, when you made this a symbol and you copy and pasted it, if I, decided I needed to make a color change or maybe add a border to it, obviously that would update everywhere.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with that was that, like, if you were zoomed into a specific artboard, you may not see the impact that it's having and kind of forget that it's a symbol, and what's happening. So two things. One, it was limiting the ability to like make a change. You may have to break it, and it had this cascading effect that.
And it always had to stay, like, because of that, like, it always had to stay the same size, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere. Same size, same color, same style. Could be different content.
Yeah.
Right? Because one of the things we did from the really early days was that content was always a thing, like it was building on a pattern, like a button. Like a button is a button, but it will have different labels on it.
Exactly.
This one says sign in. This one might say enter or cancel, but it's all the same button, but the content, the context will really change.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think, what we saw, especially as we started to introduce other features like responsive resize, was that some of these other features also brought a lot of value to kind of the power that we had with content overrides. And people were asking for those things. So as we were kind of looking at it, we made a switch to the model. So now when you turn this into a symbol, a component.
It's still we'll all right. We'll cut some slack to everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Components.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So Thor, we are talking about components today. The brand new feature release from Tuesday in XD. So some of the new behaviors and sort of functionality of components. Right.
Yeah. And so this first instance, you can see it has a diamond here in the upper left-hand corner, just signifying that it is your master component.
So so this is now the master. So again, back in the symbol days, there wasn't this icon, right? This little indicator saying like there's one master, right?
Exactly.
So all right. So you're gonna tell us about how the master now behaves in that system.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So when I copy and paste a component, just like our old model, except for that you would have to do it specifically to the master. If I make any change to this, those changes are still going to propagate everywhere. So
you still get that live updating, making sure that you trust that everywhere I've used this button, if I make the change on the master, I know it's going to be changed everywhere.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. But now I have this other capability where anything that I do to an instance will be considered an override. So, I can change this button to blue, and it didn't propagate.
So an override is a change that is local to that copy.
Exactly.
It's only on that copy.
Exactly, yeah. But I can still go back and make changes that, if it hasn't already been overridden, will still propagate to all of the instances.
This is like so powerful. I mean, and just how seamless that is, right? You can you have that flexibility to change or customize that copy of that master component, right? And customize it to its context or whatever you need it for that screen or that part of your application.
Exactly.
But always trust that the things that I haven't changed will stay in sync.
Exactly. Yeah, and then, with that, we didn't really stop there. People were asking for responsive resize on components. Oops. So we introduced the ability to resize a button. And then, for instance, you could add in longer text.
That's just that's so amazing, so powerful. Again, because I mean, I think that's the thing, that the real pattern here is that UI is flexible.
Yeah.
UI is responsive to the content that it holds,
Yeah.
right? And so, but you want to maintain the core rules or the core like layout rules or appearance of it, right? But you need to be able to customize it, and that's kind of the reason why we saw a lot of designers, including ourselves, like who were using symbols every time they needed to change the label on a button to make, and they had to make it longer because of that. They would have to break from the symbol, make another symbol, and now they had multiple flavors of the same symbol that they were managing within their document.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just one more update. We'll do another. Oops.
Hey, George, and everybody who's been joining us here, Julian. George, this stream today that we've been doing for almost a year now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is just about kind of like XD, and actually kind of introduce you to the team and kind of the thinking that went behind some of the features that you're actually using inside of XD. And so today I'm joined by Hillary Niemer. Oh, did I do it?
You did it.
I did it. Oh my gosh. And she has actually been working very hard with the team, the team working on components. So she's been designing it for what, a couple months now? Yeah. So just shipped it with our main release. So you're getting the inside scoop from the designer herself on this feature. So pretty exciting.
So we know sometimes, you may have another iteration of a button where like you want an icon added into it. Mm-hmm. And so I can now click in here. I can add, some sort of icon into it.
Mm-hmm. This is the real magic, everybody. Yeah. This is crazy.
And maybe I want this all centered.
Mm-hmm.
And because, I haven't done any changes to the text, I can still go in here and, pick a new text, change the size, and it will all still propagate.
Oh my gosh. That is just like the coolest thing ever. And actually, probably like, I have this thing that I like to say, because I've been on working on XD now for a while, and like it's a big concern is like, well, how one of the big things we've been trying to do is like, as we scale a team, how do we kind of keep the same kind of principles and kind of just sort of like core reason why we're sort of doing this. And like I love to say, like, if a feature feels like XD. Like, and anytime that does that, it just feels like we've like really cohered as a team, and like we're all sort of approaching problem solving in the same way. And like when like Hillary started like show like the prototypes of this, it was just like, oh, this feels like XD. It feels like exactly how a designer would want to sort of interact with a feature like this, right? It's really based on your decisions on canvas, rather than having to sort of manage it like through a panel or through some other form, right? I remember, I don't know if any of you remember, have you ever done variable text design inside of InDesign or Fireworks?
Yeah, not in a long time.
yeah, it's been a while for me as well, but it was really powerful, but it was so hard to set up and manage. Yeah. But once you did, oh wow, like automation. Yeah. But the thing that goes back to kind of one of the core reasons sort of driving XD was this sort of design at the speed of thought. That like, anytime you had to go and interact with a really complicated piece of UI, just to do something powerful, what it did was it meant that you almost had to feel like your design was finished before you went over and did that activity.
Totally, right? Yeah. And I think like, what was important here to us is, one of the things that we visited while we were working on this was, do we just add more overrides like to content? And I think one of the things that came up for us was like, we can't really like guess what those overrides people are going to need. Yeah. And so we really didn't want to limit anything. We wanted, you not to like run into a situation where you're frustrated and you have to break the component in order to do what you need to do. Yeah. And so I really love the flexibility we have here. Yeah. It's just, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Michael, who's on the stream of the day. So this is Hilly. If you were Hillary and myself and Gayatri on the team, who also released a huge feature this week, was part of a big feature release. We were all chatting this week on on our colleague's segment.
Yeah.
And somebody mistyped Hillary's name as Hilly.
It's a common nickname I get, though.
Hilly.
So.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's actually a really fascinating point, and I probably have talked about this on the stream sometime before, but I remember back when we were first doing the repeat grid, and also the early days of symbols, and as we like to look for patterns in the ways that people work, and we like to sort of help people build sort of smartly around that. And sometimes we might feel that to support a pattern, we might sort of put in some limits and say we actually don't think that you should ever have, like, a designer, they'll never want to have a symbol inside of a symbol, inside of a repeat grid, inside of a repeat grid. And I remember back, I actually sat down with the engineer and he's like, well, how should we limit this? How should we limit this? Actually, same engineer who worked on this feature, and I was like, oh yeah, people only want to go 1 or 2 nested elements deep,
right?
That's it. And then we actually we prototyped it and we looked at it and we tested it and it was like, oh, that feels horrible.
Yeah.
And there's something in this, the same thing, where it's like, I remember you reaching that point where you're having that conversation, well, how much control to override elements inside of an object? How far do we let people go? And at a certain point, right? Yeah, it just makes it made sense. Well, we don't know how what overrides people will make and what they won't make.
Yeah.
And actually, engineering and designing those controls would actually in the long run be more work, both for us and for the designer.
Yeah, totally.
So you've built something really powerful here with the team. Again, you can change structurally anything about this, and if there's one thing that you left unchanged, it will always stay in sync.
Yeah. And I mean, if you get it to a point where it's so off, you still always have the ability to just select that instance and right click and reset to the master. So there's always a way back too.
So cool. Dan, so no, there's actually, there is no limit to how deep you can kind of go with nested components, or again, the ways in which you can change a single component. There actually is, and actually, again, that seemed like the right engineering solution, and it also comes again with the most power and the most flexibility, for the designer actually working inside of XD. Yeah. So, crazy. Yeah, really exciting. So I mean, what else? What's another favorite thing that you like to do? So this is the button case. Yeah. What's one of your favorite things that either you've done with components or you've seen done with components?
So there's this document that we started for demoing. It's called Compass. And what I think it does really well is kind of show you the ability to make these components, resize them, kind of move the layout within it to create an entire web page. And so
from a handful of components.
From a handful of components, yeah. So I mean, it really depends how you want to set it up. Here, we have, I'm going to zoom out, but we have components that lie across mobile, iPad, and web. And what I think is super cool about that, let me try and get some next to each other. See if I can copy it here. This is one. Move it up here. Oh no. Well, essentially, I'm not sure if these are them. I think maybe here. Maybe not.
Is there the collected artboard of all the masters in that file?
I don't know.
Yeah, there they are. The master components here.
Oh, here.
Yeah, so drag that over.
Here we go.
Yeah, just drag that artboard over by the web stuff. Yeah, this is kind of crazy. Again, this is from Jonathan Pimento, who is one of our product managers, who's a very talented designer, and he created this really pushing the limits of components. And again, so here's the sort of core components that he created, and then watch what happens as Hillary starts to update some of them.
Yeah, so
it's kind of crazy.
It's kind of hard to get the.
Do the card one. Do the big card one.
This one.
That one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for this, as I start to
You go in and change the corner radius of that card.
As I start to change the corner radius here, you can see the cards that are affected by it in the artboards to the right.
I mean, this is crazy because you're actually, again, seeing this change, you actually can see like all the copies of that component, right? And you can see how they've been customized in each case. One of the things I was doing with this demo file is if you go and you change the button position of the buttons too, you can actually see them move.
Yeah. So like, moving the button positions.
It's crazy. The top header piece.
Yeah, I think here you can see the top here, and I think it's hard to see them all at once on here, but let me just make a copy of this too. So you could essentially make, your iPad version of this. Can't.
It's a very this is a really rich, complex file. It's kind of when you like navigate like someone else's file is always tricky.
Should have played with it a little bit before.
We should actually solve that problem of navigating other people's files. Actually, I think Dan, you had a suggestion earlier that maybe addressed that too. It was like being able to, here when we zoomed out, we can actually visually see what's connected. If we change something in the future, could there be a way where we could actually almost like see a graph of like all the copy the instances that are attached to that master? That'd be kind of cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think the layout stuff in particular is something that like I was really passionate about as we were starting this, because what we realized is, adding in the ability to make something responsive is great, but when you do that, the layout isn't, there aren't one layout rule for all sizes of things.
No, there's
And so you do need the ability to be able to move things around, restructure the component a little bit, but then to be able to still have, those styles intact so that if I make a change, it will still propagate to all of them. Those are some of my favorite things to see components used for.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Actually, I one that I've actually been drawing a bit, like sort of like a core sort of use case, is that exact kind of like more complex sort of card or group, right? So if I sort of make my card here, and I'm gonna I'll do this really really quick. I'll have my this is my headline, and then I'll make this into an area text, and I'll go down, right? So to make this like this, and I think if I have lorem ipsum, yes I do. Oh my gosh, plugins. Oh, look at that. That's so easy. All right, so then I have this is like a really simple example, and we could of course add more complexity to this as we go. But this just kind of shows off some of that, some of that power, right? So if I have this and then I make it a component, right? And then I'm like, all right, I need my iPad version for this same card. I'll just do, right? So then I copy and I paste that over, right? Like naturally, I want to sort of start using this space, a little more, like maybe I'm gonna make. Actually, maybe I could change this again. I could change this in any way I want. But again, as I start to resize this, right, it does exactly what I want it to do. Again, I'm using responsive resize. I have responsive resize on, so it plays really great with that. And as I go and I change it, again, I can actually, I'll go back and actually start to fundamentally sort of make some of these decisions here. Again, I'll go back and I don't want the fixed height on that. So I can actually start to sort of now use these features together to actually, build something and have it scale in the ways that I want it to, on the different sort of surfaces. And then, of course, I can even go in there. Oh, one thing I wanted to show here is that this is sort of like happening at like a group level. So again, if I go and I still change the positioning of that group, right? Like it still maintains that, but even if I go in here and I think make this headline bigger, if I go back over here again and I move the group, again, that all stays in sync. Exactly. And it's seamless. It's that design at the speed of thought. I'm staying right in context, right at the canvas level, working on my design, iterating on my design, and I can just trust that, again, anything that I don't change will just stay in sync.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Happy Friday, Dee. Good to see you, Anna. Everyone who's joining us. Ha dang. We do use PC too, and we do, again, like XD is available on both. You know, we do a lot to support both platforms. But if you got some feedback for us on the Windows side, ha dang, we'd love to hear it too. So, yeah. So, what is up next for components? What are you working on? Like, are you working on some updates you can like share for things that you know might be coming in the next couple of releases? Like, what are you working on?
There's a couple main things we're working on. One thing is the flexibility of the bounds of the component. And then another thing is just managing overrides.
Managing overrides. Tell me about that.
So it's a big topic. Obviously, if you make a change and you don't, you come back to your file a month later, you don't really know what that change is. We want to help users be able to orient around that component, what is syncing, what's not syncing, and why. And so, so so one of the things we're looking at is how much control do people need in that, a little control, and so
Yeah, that's actually that's really exciting work.
Yeah.
It's like these minor details, but one of the things Hillary and I have talked a lot about is like at a glance, what information do you need to kind of help you kind of do your job? And then as you start working with components, and you start working with components across documents, right? Like when you're working on a component, what's the important information you need to know? You probably need to know, it's connected to a master. You probably know that by default. But do you know like what has changed in this instance, in this copy, right? And how can you track that and sort of manage those overrides? Yeah, it's really exciting work. This just again this just opens up so much possibility in the future.
Yeah, there's a ton of possibility. Yeah, so the first part is just knowing what those overrides are, and then having control to remove those overrides or potentially push those overrides.
Like actually almost like sync them back to the master.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I really like what I did here.
Yeah.
Okay, now go make everything else like this.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. And of course, one of the other patterns that we would, of course, be remiss in talking about, like one of the things this is setting the stage for, is states.
Yeah. So this is something we're very excited about, and it comes with why we wanted also to introduce so much flexibility into the model that we were building. States is obviously an important thing for us as designers and has been historically really challenging to create. So we're looking at that as hopefully a soon-to-be thing.
Yeah. So you'll be able to have your component for your UI element, and of course, most UI elements, right, all have some stateful information sort of built into them, right, in code, and so. In a design tool, how can you take a component and actually author, not just overrides, but actually author the states of that UI? And then when you go and you either reuse that component or you share that component, those states will actually go along with the component.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this work already. This is such exciting work. This is such a huge step forward. I think in just design tooling, again, I don't think, again, this, Flash had states.
Yeah.
Flash had these kind of interactive components. Again, I think that this is an idea that designers have been looking for ever since we've been designing for interactive experiences. You can find things like this in a lot of other tools, but I think what you've done is really kept this again sort of rooted in the core principles of XD, right? And they're directly on canvas. Doesn't take me out of my work. I don't have to think about managing it or treating it in some other specific way. It just kind of works. It works the way that I need it to.
And that's kind of what we're focusing on for the creation of states, is just how do we take this, what we've already built, in the way that designers are already creating them, and then just make it easy to use it.
Yeah. Exciting stuff. Well, this was so nice to have you on always. And this, of course, congratulations on your 1-year work anniversary and on phase 1 of components. I know we're all looking forward to much more on components. And thank you all for joining us I've really missed streaming the last few weeks. It's been a couple for me. I've been traveling and whatnot, so it's great to see you all, and we'll see you back next week. Hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions or feedback on components. We'd love to see what you're making, and you guys have a nice Friday. See ya.